It started with a small piece of paper, folded and lying quietly outside my bedroom door. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it. I assumed it had blown in from the street or fallen from somewhere upstairs. But when the same note appeared again the next morning, and then again the day after that, I grew uneasy. Still, I resisted the urge to read it. Something about it felt private, like it wasn't meant for me, yet somehow only I was finding it. On the fourth day, curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, unfolded the slightly crumpled paper, and saw just one sentence written in shaky, hurried handwriting. "Please help me." My breath caught in my throat. The words were desperate, raw. Whoever wrote it wasn't being dramatic. This was a cry for real help, but whose? Our house wasn't large, just me, my elder brother, and his wife. Occasionally, a housemaid came by in the mornings, but she was older and quiet, someone I had known since childhood. She didn't seem like someone in distress. That left only one other person. My room was located on the ground floor facing the courtyard. Above were two rooms that belonged to my brother and his wife. I had been told not to go upstairs anymore, not since the day my brother got married and told me his wife preferred privacy. I didn't ask questions then. I had accepted the decision quietly, not wanting to create conflict. But now, as I stared at the note, I couldn't help but wonder if I had been blind to something deeper. That evening, I heard faint footsteps outside my door. I quickly pulled back the curtain and peeked through the window grill. No one was there. My heart raced. I stepped out into the courtyard, scanned both sides of the boundary wall, but saw nothing unusual. Just as I turned to go inside, movement at the staircase caught my eye. My sister-in-law was climbing the stairs, her arms full of clothes she had just taken down from the line. There was something in her hurried pace, something that didn't sit right. For months now, she had avoided coming downstairs. Why now? Why today? An odd sensation stirred in my chest. Without saying a word, I followed her. My yawn served as a disguise, as if I was simply heading upstairs to stretch or chat. She had already entered their room by the time I reached the top. My brother was in the lounge, reading the newspaper, looking unbothered. I tried to sound casual. "You came downstairs just now. Do you know who left this outside my door?" I showed her the note. Her face turned pale instantly. She froze. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Her eyes darted toward my brother, wide, frightened. And in that single glance, I knew. I knew the note had come from her, and I knew something inside that home was terribly wrong. Her silence said more than any words ever could. As she stood frozen, eyes locked on my brother, I noticed how quickly the color drained from her face. She wasn't just startled, she was terrified. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the pile of freshly folded clothes on a nearby chair. She didn't answer me, didn't even attempt a denial. Instead, she slowly backed toward the kitchen as if retreating from something dangerous. I stood still, confused and unnerved. My brother looked up from the newspaper. His expression was flat, but his eyes, sharp and calculating, shifted toward his wife. Then, in a low, controlled tone, he said, "What note are you talking about?" I held it up briefly before folding it again. "Nothing important," I lied. "Just some scrap paper, probably flew in from outside." He narrowed his eyes at me as if trying to read between my words, but I quickly changed the subject, asking him mundane things, how work was going, whether he wanted tea. He answered absently, his focus clearly elsewhere. His wife disappeared into the kitchen. I stayed for a few minutes, pretending everything was normal. Then, sensing tension building in the air, I made my way back downstairs. I had just descended halfway when I heard something that stopped me cold, his voice, loud, accusing, dangerous. "Did you say anything to her?" I froze, holding the stair railing, heart pounding. "I'm asking you a question. Did you tell her?" He barked again. "No, I only brought the laundry," she replied quickly, panic in her voice. "I haven't said a word to anyone. Please believe me." There was a pause, and then his voice came again, lower now but more threatening. "If you ever try to speak about this, if even a single word leaves your mouth, you'll be finished. Not just from this house, but from my life too." A chill ran through my entire body. My hands turned cold. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man, my brother, was threatening the woman he had vowed to protect. And for what? What secret was so shameful, so dangerous that he would go to such lengths to bury it? And worse, why was she so afraid? I returned to my room quietly, avoiding any more noise. But my thoughts were screaming. It had never occurred to me that my brother could be the reason for her distance, her fear, her silence. I had assumed she was the one who wanted to stay away, that she had been cold and arrogant. Now, all of that seemed like a lie. It hit me like a wave. This wasn't just family tension. This was fear, coercion, control, and the notes. She had been reaching out to me, carefully, quietly, risking everything. I stared at the small piece of paper again. Please help me. Now it didn't just sound like a plea. It felt like a scream trapped between the walls of this house. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the wooden floor above, every sudden gust of wind outside my window felt heavier now, like they carried a warning. My mind kept circling the same question. What had I done by bringing her into this house? I thought back to the past, how everything had spiraled after our parents passed away. Our home had once been filled with laughter, warmth, and long dinner table conversations. But the man upstairs wasn't the brother I once admired. Somewhere between our childhood memories and his late-night disappearances, he had changed. He had become cruel. He began talking back to our father, yelling at our mother, storming out for days. Rumors started spreading in the neighborhood. Women complained he made them uncomfortable. One day, it got worse. He was caught with a girl. He had assaulted her. The shame was unbearable. Our mother collapsed that night from the shock. Our father, already suffering from heart issues, deteriorated quickly and passed away a few months later. And yet, I still held on to hope. I convinced myself he wasn't evil, just lost. That he needed stability, not condemnation. That maybe, just maybe, marriage could anchor him. How naive I had been. I remembered meeting Farah for the first time, quiet, gentle, with downcast eyes and hands that always clutched a prayer book. She was staying with a friend of mine, an orphan with no siblings or security. Her guardian had told me they were worried about how to marry her off with no support. I thought I was doing them both a favor, giving Farah a home, giving my brother a reason to grow up. When he saw her for the first time, he had smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. He had called her a blessing and swore he would be a better man. I believed him. He stayed home more, quit drinking, even began helping around the house. I thought, this is it. This is the change I prayed for. But it didn't last. Soon the yelling returned. Then came the orders. I was no longer to enter their floor, not to speak to Farah without permission. He told me she had a problem with me, that I made her uncomfortable. I was confused, even hurt. But I respected his wishes. I stopped visiting upstairs. It's been 2 months since Farah last looked me in the eye. 2 months of silence, of slammed doors and late-night arguments. And now, notes. Hidden cries for help. Bruises she hides under full sleeves. Eyes that no longer hold peace, only panic. I felt a hollow ache in my chest. I thought I was helping her escape loneliness. Instead, I had delivered her into it. If only I had seen sooner what she was too afraid to say. Now I had to decide, do I continue pretending everything's fine? Or do I finally open the door I was told to stay away from? The next morning felt heavier than usual. I couldn't eat. Every bite turned to dust in my mouth. I kept checking the courtyard, expecting another note, but nothing was there. No paper, no footsteps, no sign that Farah was reaching out again. The silence was unsettling, almost as if she had given up hope. Then, just after noon, my brother left home in a rush. I watched from behind the curtain as his car disappeared down the street. My chest tightened. This was my chance. I slipped on my sandals and climbed the back staircase that led directly to the upper portion. It was the only path left to me, as the front stairs had been off limits for months. My hands trembled as I reached the landing. Every step felt like I was walking into a storm I wasn't prepared for. The door to the room was slightly ajar. I heard her voice, soft, melodic, and full of grief. She was reciting from the Quran, her voice quivering every few verses. It wasn't the kind of recitation done out of habit. It was the kind done out of desperation, a plea for strength from a soul on the edge. I stood silently in the doorway for several minutes, listening. When she finally stopped and placed the holy book gently on the stand, she looked up and saw me. Her body jolted. Faria, she whispered, her voice cracking. Her eyes filled with tears in an instant. She tried to wipe them away quickly, but they kept falling faster than her hands could hide. I rushed forward and sat beside her. Was it you? I asked softly, reaching into my pocket. I pulled out the last note I had saved. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she leaned into me, her head against my shoulder, and sobbed. It wasn't the kind of crying that asked for pity. It was the kind that came from someone who had held too much pain in silence for too long. I can't take it anymore, she whispered. He's trying to force me into something horrible. Something I can't even say out loud. What is it? I asked gently. Please tell me. She lifted her head slowly and opened her mouth to speak. But before a single word could escape her lips, we heard it. Footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Familiar. We froze. Then the door swung open and there he was, my brother, standing in the doorway, glaring at us, his face twisted with fury. What the hell are you doing here? He roared. I jumped to my feet, heart racing. You forgot something. I came to give it. But he wasn't listening. His eyes locked on Farah, who had already backed into a corner, trembling. He stormed toward her, grabbed her by the arm, and hissed. What did you tell her? Did you say anything? Farah shook her head desperately, tears pouring down her cheeks. I couldn't stay. I ran, down the stairs, through the courtyard, and into my room, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I'd heard enough to know this wasn't over. Something unthinkable was happening in that house. The air was thick with dread that night. I lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in lazy circles, unable to erase the image of my brother grabbing Farah and demanding answers. Her eyes, red, swollen, helpless, haunted me. I kept hearing her voice echoing in my head. He's trying to force me into something horrible. What did she mean? What could be so monstrous that she couldn't even say it aloud? The next day, as expected, another note appeared outside my door. Please save me. Tonight I may lose everything. I read it again and again until my hands began to tremble. This wasn't just about control or emotional abuse anymore. Something irreversible was about to happen, and she was begging for someone to stop it. By evening, I was pacing. I couldn't wait for morning. I couldn't risk waking up to find I was too late. When my brother stepped out again, I knew what I had to do. I grabbed the note and quietly made my way up the back staircase. From the top floor, I could already hear muffled voices, her voice pleading, his voice barking orders. I crept to the bedroom door, which had been left slightly open. I didn't dare go in. Instead, I stood just close enough to hear. I've told you again and again, he snapped. This is the only way. No, Farah cried. You can't ask this of me. It's disgusting. It's a sin. I'm your husband, he shouted. You belong to me. You do what I say. You want me to sleep with your friend, she said through sobs, her words trembling. Just so I can get pregnant? To cover your shame? I felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. My knees nearly gave way. That's right, he hissed. You think I'll let people laugh at me? Call me less of a man? No, you'll do what I say. You'll give this family an heir, even if I have to make you. Farah's voice broke. You can't force this on me. I kept myself for you. I waited. I honored our marriage. And this is how you repay me? You'll do it, he growled. Because if you don't, I'll make sure no one ever sees you as pure again. And don't think your little notes will save you. At that moment, my body moved before my brain could catch up. I stumbled back, nearly tripping on the stairs as I fled. My legs shook with every step. I didn't stop until I reached the bottom floor and locked myself inside my room. My hands were ice. My chest ached. I had never imagined a man could fall so far, let alone the man I once called my protector. Farah wasn't just fighting for dignity anymore. She was fighting for her soul. And I knew if I didn't act now, she might lose everything. I sat on the edge of my bed, legs trembling, eyes fixed on the note that still lay unfolded in my lap. The words, please save me, Tonight, I may lose everything. Burned into my memory like fire. Farah was alone upstairs, with no one to protect her. My brother, the same man who once held my hand across puddles, who tied my shoelaces when I was little, had become someone else. Or perhaps he had always been this way, and I'd only just opened my eyes. I thought of all the moments I had ignored. Her silence, her tired smile, the layers of clothing in summer, the way her eyes darted to the floor when anyone asked how she was. She had been screaming for help long before the notes began. I just hadn't listened. But now I had to. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found her, my mother's sister, my aunt. She lived only 2 streets away. For a long time, we had barely spoken. She and my brother never got along. But if there was one person in this world who would believe me without question, it was her. My hands shook as I typed the message. Please come, it's urgent. Farah is in danger. My brother is trying to force something terrible on her. Seconds after I hit send, my phone lit up. It was her. I answered, my voice already cracking. I don't have time to explain, I whispered, pacing the floor. Just come now. Bring help if you can. I'll meet you at the front gate. She heard the urgency in my voice and didn't ask questions. I'm coming, she said, and hung up. 10 minutes later, I saw her car pull up. She stepped out, breathless, her face pale with confusion and fear. I ran to her, pulled her aside, and told her everything, what I had heard, what Farah had confessed, what my brother had planned for tonight. She clutched her chest and staggered back, stunned. What kind of man does this? She gasped. My own nephew. I need you to be strong, I said firmly. We have to stop him. He said his friend is coming tonight. They've brought an injection to sedate her. If we wait too long, she didn't let me finish. Call the police, she said, voice sharp now. Right now. I didn't hesitate. With trembling fingers, I dialed the emergency number and reported the entire situation. The operator assured me that a team would be dispatched immediately. We waited in silence near the gate, hidden behind the corner of the wall, and then we heard it, a car approaching. Its tires crunched over gravel and stopped just beyond the entrance. He was here. Her attacker. The friend. I felt rage boil inside me, stronger than fear now. I wouldn't let Farah suffer alone. Not tonight, not ever again. The car door slammed shut. My brother's so-called friend had arrived. My aunt's face had gone white, her hand gripping the edge of the gate for support. She whispered shakily, "He's not alone. He brought something." I could see the glint of a syringe in his hand, loosely wrapped in a small cloth. My breath caught. This was it. I couldn't wait for the police to arrive. Every second mattered now. I motioned for my aunt to stay hidden and ran through the back entrance of the house, climbing the rear staircase 2 steps at a time. My heart thundered in my chest, threatening to burst. I didn't know what I would do, only that I had to do something. As I reached the landing, I saw them entering Farah's room. My brother walked in first, followed by the friend. Farah screamed the moment she saw them, backing up against the wall, clutching the edge of the bed. Her cries were sharp and piercing, enough to make any soul stop. But they didn't. You said you'd give her time, the friend snapped. She's had enough time, my brother said coldly, yanking her by the wrist. She kicked and screamed, trying to push them away. Please, don't do this, please, I'm begging you. My brother growled, shut up, and forced a piece of cloth into her mouth to muffle her cries. I had seen enough. My eyes landed on an iron rod lying near the bathroom door, probably left behind by a worker days ago. Without thinking, I grabbed it, stormed into the room, and swung it with every ounce of strength I had. The rod cracked against my brother's head. He dropped to the ground instantly, dazed, blood trickling down his forehead. The friend turned toward me, enraged. What the hell? He snarled, reaching for me. He was taller, stronger, but I didn't back away. He twisted my arm and shoved me against the wall. You filthy little... But before he could finish, flashing lights poured through the windows. Police sirens, the pounding of boots on the stairs followed. Within seconds, officers stormed into the room. The man tried to flee, but they tackled him with brute force. One of the officers grabbed my brother, who was still conscious but groaning on the floor, and hauled him up roughly. Farah collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably, her body limp from the shock. Her eyes were swollen, her voice hoarse, but she held me like she had just been pulled from drowning. My aunt entered, crying softly, clutching her chest at the sight. The nightmare was ending, but the damage it had left behind would take a long time to heal. As they dragged my brother and his friend down the stairs, I looked at Farah, her forehead pressed to my shoulder, and whispered, "You're safe now. I promise." And for the first time in weeks, she nodded. The police vehicle disappeared down the street, taking with it two shadows that had darkened our lives. My brother, blood on his shirt, eyes filled with rage even in handcuffs, never once looked back. His friend sat beside him, silent, ashamed, defeated. The sound of the sirens faded, but the chaos they left behind still hung in the air. Farah sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. Her scarf had slipped from her head, and her hair clung to her tear-soaked cheeks. She looked smaller now, fragile like a porcelain doll that had cracked but hadn't yet shattered completely. I brought her a glass of water. Her hands shook as she took it, but she managed to sip. For a long time, we didn't speak. The silence wasn't awkward, it was sacred. It was the first time in weeks she wasn't being watched, threatened, or silenced. She was breathing freely, even if shakily. My aunt knelt beside her, holding her hand with trembling fingers. "You're not alone anymore," she said gently. "He won't hurt you again." Farah nodded, eyes full of gratitude. "I didn't think anyone would believe me," she whispered. "I thought I would die before someone listened." I sat beside her, overwhelmed with guilt. I should have listened sooner. I should have seen it. "You came," she said softly, her voice cracking. "When no one else would. You came." I wrapped my arms around her, and for the first time, she didn't flinch. Her head rested against my shoulder, and I felt her body finally begin to relax. That night, she didn't sleep in fear. She slept knowing she was finally safe. Morning sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, casting soft patterns on the walls. Farah stirred beside me on the bed, her breathing slow, her face calm. It was the first time in a long while that peace had settled into the room like this. No shouts, no slamming doors, just the quiet rhythm of healing beginning. She opened her eyes slowly and looked at me. There was pain in them, yes, but also something new. Strength. "I've been thinking," she said after a while, her voice still hoarse. "Why do people marry their broken sons off to unsuspecting girls, hoping marriage will fix them?" I didn't know how to answer. Farah sat up, tucking the scarf around her head again with quiet grace. "They treat us like we're some kind of rehab, as if our love will erase their cruelty, as if silence is the price of loyalty." I felt a heavy weight settle in my chest. I didn't know he'd do this. I truly thought, maybe you would change him. Her expression softened. "That's what everyone says. That maybe we'll change them. But what if instead of waiting for them to heal, we asked why girls like me are handed to them in the first place?" Her words hit like thunder in a clear sky. She wasn't just speaking about herself anymore. She was speaking for every woman silenced by shame, every girl told to stay quiet for the sake of honor, every wife reduced to a solution for a problem she didn't create. She wasn't bitter, she was brave. And for the first time, I realized her strength didn't come from enduring pain. It came from refusing to let it define her. The next few days moved slowly, like time itself was catching its breath. Farah stayed with my aunt for a while. She needed space, not just from the house, but from every memory carved into its walls. My brother remained in custody. Legal proceedings had started, but for now, there was silence, the kind that follows a storm. I walked through the house and found remnants of the life I thought we had. Photographs on the wall, laughter caught in frames, but now I saw them differently. Behind every smile, there had been something hidden: fear, control, manipulation. One evening, I visited Farah at my aunt's house. She greeted me with a soft smile, still pale but steady. There was tea on the table and a warmth in the room that hadn't existed before. A kind of freedom. "I've decided I want to help other girls," she said gently. "Girls like me. Girls who don't have a voice. Maybe if someone had helped me sooner, things wouldn't have gone this far." I nodded, emotion rising in my throat. You're not just surviving this, Farah. You're transforming it. She looked at me, eyes steady. That's the only way it stops. When we stop pretending silence is protection. Her words stayed with me long after I returned home. That night, I stood in the same courtyard where those little notes had first appeared. The wind rustled gently, but the steps were silent now. No more cries hidden in scribbled paper. No more secrets behind locked doors. Farah had found her voice, and I had found mine too. Not all scars bleed. Some live quietly inside the soul, until one act of courage brings them into the light.